Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to an episode of Step Up and Make a Difference, the podcast. I'm Mike Peacock, along with my man, my partner, my co-host, my good buddy, my brother in Christ, Marty Durden. Marty, how are you on this kind of gloomy last Sunday of October?
Yes, Mike, doing great, man. It's so good to be here with you and looking forward to introducing the world to Bo Sasnett, our guest today, who is a tremendous servant leader in an executive position. So I think the audience is in for a real treat meeting Bo Sasnett.
I agree. And I'll tell you, I'm going to go ahead and beg everyone's forgiveness today. I am ending up a long weekend, and since Friday, I have been fighting the onset of what feels like a sinus infection. And if I get a little bit hoarse today and you see me drinking a lot of water, you'll understand why. And I may be quieter than normal, but as long as my voice holds up, we're going to be good. And we're going to get it done today. And I'm looking forward also, Marty, to talking to Bo. You've told me a good bit about him, but why don't you officially introduce Bo and let's bring him on into the show?
Well, let's do that. We're welcome and we're honored to have today Mr. Bo Sasnett, who is a Georgia native living in Texas now, and he is in the energy business. He has founded a company out there. We're going to let him get into the details that has grown and done well and met a need in our society. And they've done it in such a good way. But more than anything else, I would like to say that Bo is the quintessential example of what we're talking about. He is a servant leader in the world, in the corporate world. He does that everywhere he goes. So, Bo, we are overjoyed, man, to have you here. We can't thank you enough for spending this Sunday afternoon with us.
Well, wow, Marty, first off, it's awesome to be on the program, and thanks for having me. It's an honor, and I hope that I can step up and make a difference today. And thank you for that intro. It's very kind of you, and I hope I can live up to the accolades that you just gave me. Thank you.
Well, Bo, we normally, when we have a guest on, we kind of get a little bit of a background. Marty already told us that you're from Georgia, so give us a little of your background, how you got from growing up in Georgia to Texas, and then talk a little bit about your company and what you guys do, and just kind of bring us all in the loop on that.
Sounds great, Mike. Love to. So I grew up in Atlanta. Lived 50 years of my life in Atlanta. So I'm a Georgia native. Went to high school there. I went to college at Georgia Southern. But when I was, around 50 years old, I had an opportunity to come to Houston to run a company in Houston. And it was at the right time in my life, and it was the right opportunity at the time, so I thought. And so I made the trek. My family and we moved out to Houston, kind of a new adventure for us. And it's interesting because Marty and I were talking about earlier how God works in different ways in your life. And sometimes you don't know, right? And sometimes he will, like, to get me out of Atlanta. I was a pretty big time Georgia native, and to get me out of Atlanta, it had to be a really great opportunity and the right timing for me and my family. And it turned out that particular opportunity, it didn't last, and it wasn't what we thought it was. But what it did do is it led to where I am today. And it got us out to Houston and led to the opportunity that we had with the company I founded back in 2015. And so it's one of those things where you never know until sometimes you stand back and you're able to see, what has happened and transpired, that, wow, I think God was working in my life during that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so our company that we formed in 2015, I had the great opportunity. I grew up, I'm third generation in, Marty had mentioned, in the energy business. It's really the energy infrastructure business. And it's really interesting because it's something that we do every single day. All of us goes and drives our car and we fill up our car with gasoline, right? And so my company, what we do in the industry that I'm in, it's in the infrastructure business where we put together fuel systems and service fuel systems for filling up your vehicle. So every day when you go out there and you put in your credit card at the gas pump and you put the nozzle in the tank and fill up your car, it's kind of like everybody's really used to it. You don't think much about it, right? But there's a lot of complex things that happen to bring that all together. And that's what my company does. We put that all together. So I was in that industry. I grew up with my dad in the industry, and his father also was in our industry. And so I've been in it all my life. I've been in it professionally for 40 years, which is kind of crazy to me. I always used to think, well, I'm the young guy in the industry. And now I look back, now I'm the old guy, right? So I kind of have fun joking about that. But back in 2015, I had the opportunity, because of contacts that I had, to buy two companies. One was a company called D&H Petroleum Equipment. The other was another one called United Pump Supply. And I found some financial partners, and we put together a deal. We bought these two companies. We put them together so it'd be one company. And I wasn't too creative on the naming. I called it D&H United, which it was D&H, it was United. So there it was. And we put these two companies together, and we felt like it was really great timing in the industry to do this. It was before, I don't know if you all remember, those where you have those chips on your credit cards now.
Mm-hmm.
During at the time, they were just getting ready to start changing out all the gas pumps so that they could accept those chip credit cards. So we thought the timing was really right for that. And we felt like we could put a lot of energy around the business and really put in a growth-oriented mindset and really put the emphasis of the business around service, taking care of the customer, and being a service-oriented company. And with that, we've had just really great success growing our business. Today, when we bought the company, we had 200 employees. So it was a pretty decent-sized company at the time. But today, we've grown that, and we're now to 1,400 employees. Yeah, it's crazy, Marty.
Wow.
And our annual revenues, we've grown about 1,000% in the 10-year period. And our bottom line, we've grown 2,000%. So it's been a heck of a great ride. We've been on the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies in America for the last 4 years straight. So that's been a great honor. And then this past month, we've rebranded the company to really try to brand the company in a way where it represents who we are and who we are to our customer. And the company is now called United Uptime Services. And because our customers, they expect their gas pumps and their fuel systems to be up and running so that when somebody pulls in to fill up their tank, they want them to be pumping gas and coming in the store and then heading down the road. And so that's what uptime is all about for us.
So we're both got up. So
yeah,
we're step up. You're up
time, baby. That's right.
We're like,
and so we really appreciate the history of our company because there were two long operating companies. And so we kept the United because of a link to our history, as well as part of our growth is we've acquired companies throughout the years. I think we've done 12, 15 acquisitions over the years. And so we wanted to unite all those companies and our employees together, as well as unite under the mission of uptime for our customers.
You know, one of the things, Bo, that impresses me more than anything else, and when I see what you're doing from the outside looking in, I see a culture of others, of empowering other people and servant leadership, which is, what we're all about here. And that is the thing that impresses us the most. And quite honestly, why we wanted you on our show, because we just believe in servant leadership. And obviously you do too.
Well, Marty, I truly do. And really, when it all comes down to it, our business, and really when you think about it, life, it's all about, the people, really. Mm-hmm. And so for us in our business, it's all about the people. And so I've always felt like it was very important to have a real people-oriented culture. And I've always felt like, it's interesting. I saw your sponsor was Chick-fil-A, right? I have always admired that company and how they take care of their people, and that whole philosophy of, if you take care of your people, they will take care of your customers. And so that's kind of the culture that we built our business around. And I also felt like, if you're taking care of your people, they take care of your customers, and you give good customer service, well, you're going to win, right? And so you're going to be a successful business if you have those basic fundamentals, because you're going to be taking care of the customer better than anybody else.
I agree with that so much. And that is such a strong line of leadership for servant leaders. You take care of the people, and they'll make you the money. And it's the same way, you hear guys like Saban talking about staying in the process, and that's the way it is. John Wooden, who's my hero as a coach, never uttered the word win or lose to his players. He just talked about how to learn the game.
Right.
And I think that's something you've adopted. I'm really proud to hear that from you.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. And that means a lot to me. And I feel blessed that as we built our company, we've had so many great people in our business that have, been working together in sync with common goals to help us grow our business. And like I say, it's not, this isn't a Bo thing. This is a company thing and a people thing. And it's just been great to have a great leadership team and great people all the way through our company who've been contributing to our success.
And Bo, our viewership may be tuning in tonight, and they're taken aback a little bit, because normally we have coaches, athletic directors, things like that in here, because our show really is geared toward athletics. But you've already mentioned a whole lot of words in the way your company's organized and the way you've done things that are synonymous with every other guest we've had in the athletic realm, and that is relationships and leadership and putting people in the right place, and all of that. So running a business really is, and heading up a business really is like being a coach, because you're doing a lot of the same things, and you're all got a common goal. If you put people in the right place and you get them doing the right things and you treat them right, then they'll go out and perform for you. And that's what a coach does, I think, every day of the week. You believe in the people that you have, you support those people as best you can, you serve those people, and then they go out and perform to their best ability. And, you know, regardless of the result on the scoreboard, you win. So that's pretty cool that a lot of the same terminology is there. And that's what we wanted people to see by having you on here, that all of these concepts that we talk about, especially servant leadership, are not just limited to an athletic realm, but they're out in the real world as well.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's probably not a coincidence that I was a youth sports coach, and we have many people in our organization who also have coached at the youth level, and I think there's a lot of, like you said, Mike, a lot of similarities in what you see in success in the coaching and sports world and in the business world. I haven't gone out and I mean, we talk about teams, we talk about winning and things like that, but we haven't like designed anything specifically to be like, okay, we're a sports type thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of real similarities on running an organization, on taking care of your people, on helping them achieve things, knocking down roadblocks for them so they can grow, and giving people more responsibility, things like that. There's so much crossover between what successful sports coaches and programs do and successful businesses, I would say.
And it's amazing how when you start networking in these relationships, and you and I were talking about this in the green room before we started. You went to Georgia Southern, right? Mm-hmm. And in a minute, I want you to talk to us about, after we finish this segment here, I want you to talk to us about, you were there when football started at Georgia Southern. But the funny thing is that
you're making me sound old, Marty.
But what I've sensed before, leading up to this program, I have never seen as much. We have never had as much feedback for a guest as we have for you. And I mean, we've had some pretty well known people on here. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like there's a real audience out there tonight. I can just see people listening because they were texting me all day today. I'm going to be listening. And here's a funny thing about this is there's a kid named Chance Allshouse who was at Presbyterian where Houston Steele, and Steele played sports. He was a Panther over there, and so Chance goes, now he graduates from Presbyterian. He goes over to your alma mater in Statesboro, Georgia, right? Yeah. And he, I think, was maybe hired or he's working with a guy that you know.
Yeah.
Finish that story up and tell us the end of that.
Well, yeah, happy to. So we were talking about Georgia Southern, of course, and I don't know if you want me to talk about the football program later or now, Mark.
Anything you want to say, man, it's your show.
All right. Well, first off, that's where I ended up at college. I probably went there at the time because I couldn't get into Georgia, Marty. Sorry. But it was a real small school until Irk Russell came along. Irk was a legendary defensive coordinator for Vince Dooley, and he never thought he was going to get a chance at Georgia because Vince was in place there. And so he started the program down at Georgia Southern. The first year I was there, we were a football club, and they were playing at the Statesboro High School, and they were playing people like the Brunswick Police Academy, as an example. It was really exciting for the college students, right? It was like, wow, the first year of football. And then the next year we had a full-blown football program, and then they built a stadium. And then, as you know, a lot of people would know, Irk went on to win several national championships in 1A, and really, a legendary program that he had there. So we were talking about that, and then you were telling me about this young man from Presbyterian who went to school where my two kids went to elementary and middle school. and in Houston. And so happens that now he's graduated Rice and gone to Georgia Southern in the athletics department, raising funds. And I said to Marty, oh, by the way, one of our friends from Atlanta, not from Houston, but from Atlanta, who we played youth sports with, he is down at Georgia Southern. And I forget his title, but he's like running, I think, that fundraising in the athletic department. So I'm sure they know each other. He may have even hired him. But it is so interesting how things are connected in life, and how you hear stories like this. And to me, it's interesting that some of this is connected to youth and youth sports also. And then it comes back to, this connection down in Georgia Southern. And I'm looking forward to speaking with this young man and some of how, what's going on and some of his stories there, and connecting him with Joe Chapman. If he's not connected already, at least I can be another dot there. But I think it's just so unique how a lot of times I feel like God is in our life, guiding us and connecting us in a lot of different ways.
I totally agree. And we've got to finish this up by saying, that guy sitting up there above you wearing an Auburn hat, right? He's a big Auburn fan. So you need to tell the other story that connects you to Auburn.
Yeah.
All right. So my last name is Sasnett. My great grandfather, he actually was the first president of Auburn University. And there's a dormitory there called Sasnett Hall. And the funny story is my oldest son, he has my name as well, but he goes by his middle name. And so his name's Hall Sasnett. And so we always said if Hall would have gone, he went to TCU, but if he would have gone to Auburn, he could have been Hall Sasnett living in Sasnett Hall. So, but I will take that story a little bit further, Marty. My great-grandfather, his son, which was my grandfather, he went to Georgia. And so him and his dad always battled it out, house divided, Auburn against Georgia. And then the funny thing is, my father went to Georgia Tech. And so him and his father were always rivals of Georgia Tech and Georgia. Mm-hmm. Now, since I went to Georgia Southern, we didn't have that kind of rivalry, with them. But I grew up going to Georgia Tech games, so I'm a Georgia Tech fan. So I'm very pleased with this year's Georgia Tech team and how that's going. It's been a long time coming, so we're very grateful for that.
And it's a small world. I know we hear that expression, but it is.
It really is.
It really is. Yeah.
Marty, and I can tell you some other stories that are kind of crazy of how, how small world things are, and how God kind of connected me and my wife. I don't know if you want to hear about that or not. But,
yeah, absolutely.
So my wife was head of nursing in a ICU in Piedmont Hospital, in the cardiovascular ICU. So my dad had a problem. He was flying an airplane, private pilot, and he had a pain in his left hand. So he went and checked it out with his doctor. His doctor said, I want you to go into the hospital to get some tests run. He said, okay, let me go home and get my stuff. He said, no, I want you to go right now. And so when he was in the hospital getting tested for heart problems, he had a heart attack. Well, where do you want to have a heart attack, right? Mm-hmm. So they caught it. They gave him enzymes, opened up all his blockage, so he didn't have to have any kind of surgery, anything like that. But then they started looking at him, and they found out he had lung cancer.
Oh, my goodness.
And he had pretty fast-growing lung cancer. So after he got his strength back from the heart attack, he had to have surgery, and they cut out the upper left lobe of his lung. And so he ended up in the cardiovascular ICU. And so that's, and I was talking to my dad one day in the ICU, and this nurse was talking to me about, I was asking why my dad was so confused. And she said, well, when they cut off oxygen to the brain. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I start, giving her a little bit of a hard time. And the head nurse comes in and she says, oh, what she meant to say was this. Well, it turns out the head nurse was who I'm married to now for 34 years. But she came in and she calmed things down. And my sisters were like, our dad is on his deathbed, and here you are flirting with the nurse. I'm like, I'm just trying to get the best care possible I can, for our father. But it turned out that my dad, he had that surgery. He recovered. He lived another 15 years. He didn't have to have chemo or radiation. And he got to see me get married. He said he had to be on his deathbed for me to get married. So he saw me get married and saw my two sons born. And to me, this was a thing that's one of these lessons in life for me, was that, first off, you say, oh, he had a heart attack. How terrible. It's horrible, right? But if he hadn't had that heart attack, we wouldn't have known that he had this cancer that was such a fast growing cancer that he most likely would have lost his life by the time they found it. And then in that whole process, I met my wife, and then my dad got to see me married and have my children. And what a great blessing that was. So I try to, and not everything ends up like that, right? That's an amazing story where we feel like God blessed us and put us together. But I try to say that sometimes we don't know, that moment we're in, we don't know what that, that really means and what that journey really is. And sometimes we have the great ability to be able to look back and see and say, wow, God did play a role in my life, and look at what he did, right? So it's pretty cool.
Amazing. That's an amazing story. And here's one more coincidence. You have two sons. I have two sons. Mike Peacock has two sons.
That's it. Yep.
Hey, I grew up with four sisters, and I was the only boy. And of course, people say, oh, you must be spoiled. It was more like every man for himself. But but it was pretty great having two boys after growing up with four sisters like that.
Well, I'll add this, Bo. I'm the youngest, and I had two sisters. So I was the only boy in the family, and I was the baby. So, of course, I got accused of getting away with everything because I was the baby of the family, and I had two older sisters, and and I grew up in all the girl drama. And
you had to go through those teenage years with them.
Oh yeah. And I was a kid, through their teenage years too, so I was picked on, and I was screamed at, and I was the scapegoat and everything else, but I also was always accused of being the baby and getting away with everything, getting to do things that that they didn't get to do, or something like that. So but yeah, I know all about that, and I'm the same way you are. I am thankful to God every day that I had boys. And being a teacher and a coach as long as I was, I saw all of it. And don't think middle school and high school boys don't have drama. They do, but the girl drama just kind of intensified a little bit, and I think that's the way God made women, is that they're going to do things differently and see things differently and handle things differently, and a lot of times that we see it as drama, but that's really just how God made them, and we couldn't live without it.
Right. I mean, thank gosh we're all different, right? So
Right.
And Mike, I know what you're saying, because I have three older sisters too. So
Wow.
Yeah. So
I have one sister, but it's like having five. I love that. I love her. She's one of the best friends I ever had.
I feel very blessed to have my family and my broader family, my sisters and my own nuclear family, right? So,
While we're on this subject, let's talk about that. I mean, family is part of that. We try to talk about family every week, Bo, and how in the world today, it's just so difficult to be that influence, with all the things going on in the world. What do you do to try to keep your family, hold them close? How do you
yeah.
do it?
Well, I think there's a couple of important things there, Marty, for me. I think, first off, I think it's important that we have friendships with our kids, but we also are the parents, right? And so we're not we sometimes have to, do hard stuff because there's lessons to be learned, and there's times, where we have to be the parent. And I think, that's one of the things that I think that Mary Jane and I have been good at is we're friends with our kids, of course, but we're parents. And so that's been a part of how we've raised our family anyways. And then I think it's just important too, we try to just always, stay in touch. One of the greatest things I love too, Marty, is that whenever we're on the phone or talking to them and we're saying goodbye, we all say, I love you. And it's just really, what a great blessing. I really, and my sisters might get on me about this if they hear this, but I don't recall when I was growing up us doing that at least that much. And it's really a wonderful thing, right? And so
It is.
it's nice to know that we do that and, that we have that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very important. You always wonder, hey, if the last word you ever spoke to your kid was "I love you,"
Yeah.
that'd be a good way to part, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then the other thing that I'm proud of, if I look at my boys and my wife, all of us, we have a pretty good work ethic. And I think that's important. I think it's important in life that we're supposed to be growing, and we're supposed to go out and make something of ourselves, right? And so having a work ethic, I think, is really important. And my wife has that, I have that, and my kids have that, and I'm proud of that, really.
Yeah.
And I think in today's world, and maybe I'm sounding like that old guy again, but in today's world, I don't know that work ethic is what it once was, that, with what we grew up with. And I think that anybody that has that, I feel like they can really be successful in today's world by working hard and having a good work ethic, because it'll be noticed and it differentiates you.
I agree with you. And one of the things I remember I've always said to the kids, and you all heard this without a doubt, is people don't respect lazy people.
Mm.
If you want to gain respect in the world, earn it. Work.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, you just can't get anywhere in life and be proud of where you are if you don't work for it. I heard a guy that's shorter this week tell the story, and King David wanted to buy a piece of land, and so he went to the guy who owned his piece of land and offered him money, and the guy said, "I will never sell you this land. It's a very valuable piece of land, but you're the king. I will give it to you." And King David says to him, his answer was, I was going to use this land to leave to the people, but I can never give something away that I didn't pay for first. And that really stuck with me, because that's the truth. If we want to have self-respect, if an athlete wants to be proud looking back on his career or her career, they built it brick by brick
Yep.
with their labors. And there's no better feeling in the world than to know that what you have, you worked for and you earned.
Right, right. And Marty, the other thing is, and I think about my career, right? And everybody has different, steps in their journeys, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my career, where I've come to with the company, with United Uptime Services, I started that after I was 50 years old, right?
Wow.
And and I think that hard work and consistency has been a part of my success. Not just working hard for 5 years, not working hard for a year or 3 months or whatever, but consistently over my lifetime. And that's kind of led me to where I got to with this company, and where to God's led me with this company as well.
It's big.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. And let's look at another aspect, Bo, of you leading a company, and we've already kind of compared that to being a coach. But when you have been going through the hiring process throughout your career, what are some things that you look for in individuals, especially if they're coming into a leadership position with your company? What are some characteristics that you look for? Because I kind of feel like they're going to parallel what we hear coaches say all the time about advice they would give young folks and things like that, getting into the profession. But what are some characteristics that you're looking for when you are looking for a good employee, especially in a leadership position?
So, Mike, that's a great question. And first thing I do want to tell you guys, and I think Marty knows this, that I'm now co-chairman of the board, and so I'm no longer CEO of the company, and I'm really enjoying this next phase in my journey, which is a whole different level, right? And more mentoring and guiding and things like that. But that being said, our and I think I speak for me and our leadership team in saying, when we're looking at somebody and hiring somebody, some of the characteristics you like to see is, for me anyways, first off, I really like to see somebody that I think has a positive attitude, and is very engaged and wants to be a part of our culture. And that's, somebody that cares about people and is going to be a fit with our team. I think all of that, is very, very important. I go back to work ethic. There's a lot to be said for working smarter and not harder. But also we do know that, and especially when you're in a growing company and you wear a lot of hats, you got to be able to just jump in there, right? And you got to be able to jump in. You got to be a quick learner, and you've got to be willing to take on different things and not just say, "Hey, I'm in this little box here, and that's not my job," right? You don't want that, right? So you want people that are willing to to go to bat for you, people that are going to be loyal, people that that you want to be in the trenches with, right? All of that. So I don't know if that answered your question well, Mike, but it gives you kind of some insight about how I think of people and what I'm looking for.
And let me ask you this question too. I didn't mean to interrupt there, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm writing this chapter right now on the difference in management and leadership, or if it really is a difference. It's just a contrast and comparison. Do you think that, and Mike, I would like for you to join in with your input on this too. I'm seeking feedback from both you guys. What is the difference? Is there a difference in management and leadership?
Yeah, I think there definitely is. I think management, you could be a bad manager, right? and so I think they're two different things, but they can also be two things that are the same. You could be a great leader as a manager, right?
Mhm.
So I guess with leadership, it's all about leading people. To me, it is anyways, right?
Me too. Yeah.
Whereas management, you can have a lot of processes and things like that involved, and it doesn't necessarily mean that in management you're a leader, if that makes sense. You got to kind of own being a leader, I guess is what I'm saying, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't just come with the title of management, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think it's
It
more
does.
visionary, and then the toolkit becomes the manager rather than, what do you think, Mike?
I want to bring this up because I have seen this with people before, people that I've known, people that I've observed. I've known people who have been managers and in management for their whole career, but they never advanced to leadership. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
I
Yeah.
mean, you think about that, but then I've seen people who were great managers who also were great leaders at the same time, and those people seem to advance and keep rising in a company structure or in a coaching staff. How many times do you hear about a kid in athletics who started out as a team manager?
Yeah.
And then they came up through the ranks. Maybe they became a player for a while. And then maybe they went to college as a manager and then a student coach and then a graduate coach. And now some of the best head coaches out there have that background with them. Marty, you and I have a great friend, Jonathan Norton, who came to Columbus State, and I got to know him at Columbus State. He was already there when I got there in 1995, but I got to know him there when he was a student assistant, and then he became a graduate assistant. Then he became a full-time assistant, and then he went out and became a head coach and ended up coming back to Columbus State as their women's basketball head coach for several years. And now he is the leader of Calvary Christian School here in Columbus. He is the head of school. And here's a guy who started out as a manager and was put in charge of a lot of duties. But at the same time, he became a leader and showed leadership ability and ended up being a head coach. And that's just one example. I've heard of numerous guys who have started out like that I know numerous people in coaching who are now head coaches who started out simply when they started coaching, they got the itch to coach and they started as a student coach or a volunteer coach. And then they really advanced as they learned and they got mentorship from people. And not only did they have great management skills, but they developed great leadership skills. And I think leadership was the key to them advancing from a simple management structure to one of leadership. What do you guys think?
I just wanted to say that one of the best things that I can think of with our company is seeing someone that maybe started out as a technician that rose up to be maybe a service manager. Then he's rose up to be a branch manager, then rose up to be, a regional manager, vice president, things like that. And we have a lot of evidence of that in our company. And to me, it's one of the best things that I can think of, or most rewarding things of our company, is to be able to see people that have deservedly grown within the organization, and they've been given a chance, and then they develop skills, and then they have and a lot of times, I mean, they've taken, we've given them some education, but it's really been the fact that they've become great leaders, right? And that people follow leaders, right? That's why they're called leaders, right?
That's right.
And being able to see somebody grow and their leadership skills grow through the organization, it's just one of the most rewarding things that we can have.
And you know, it's not about in servant leadership. It's not about creating followers. It's about creating more leaders.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know? So that's exactly right. You know, we're gonna have to cut this thing off, man. I feel like I'm just getting started tonight. I don't know about you two guys. I think you're gonna have to come back, Bo.
Oh yeah,
Would, man.
yeah, definitely.
Because there's so many things right now I want to ask you, and sort of gain some of your insight in that leadership. And so we'll ask you right now, would you come back for us maybe after the first of the year? And
Marty, I'd be more than pleased to join you guys. It's been a great conversation. I love what you guys are doing, and just I'm very grateful that you guys have invited me to be a part of what you're doing, and that y'all are making a difference. And I think it's awesome. So,
well, I'm glad you supported me from the get-go on this idea. And listen, man, it means the world. And so we'll have you back. And when you come back, I want you to talk about how Jesus led.
All right.
Leading like Jesus.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that
hey,
right there is a book we could write, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
no doubt. And hey, all this talk about Auburn, Marty, me being, I'm going to set my fandom aside here, but I'm going to talk about a little story that has to do with Auburn.
Good.
There's a kid that plays for Auburn. His name is Alex McPherson. And when he came out of high school, he was one of the most heralded kickers in the country. And he signed with Auburn. And I think his freshman year, he was perfect on field goals. He never missed. And then going into his sophomore year, after football season of his freshman year, he started having health problems, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And finally, they figured out that he had ulcerative colitis. And when you're an 18, 19-year-old kid and you're going through a condition like that that's normally reserved for much older people. You usually hear about ulcerative colitis in adults and sometimes older adults. And here's a college kid who's a gifted athlete going through that. Well, he missed most of last year, and he maybe kicked in one or two games, and he was so weak he could only kick short kicks and things like that, extra points. And then coming into this year, he finally got healthy, started gaining some weight back. And the closer it got to the season, though, he had a little bit of a setback, and then he had to basically kind of get healthy again. But, fast forward to last week, he missed 3 field goals in a game that, everybody thought Auburn was going to win. They ended up losing in double overtime, as a matter of fact. He missed 3 field goals, and as he came off the field on both of those, Alex did what Alex always does. He went up to every one of the linemen. He went up to the snapper, the holder. He gave him a head bump. He patted him on the chest, and as he was walking off the field, he looked up and he gave glory to God. Now, this is when he missed, okay? There was a member of the national media who's well known, especially online, and I'm not going to mention his name. You can look it up if you want to, but he's pretty famous, especially in more political type discussions, who went online and made a video and basically talked about how terrible Auburn's kicker was, and couldn't believe that he was celebrating, missing by pointing upward when he was there. Well, let's fast forward to this week. Yesterday, that young man tied an Auburn record by kicking 6 field goals in a game.
Wow.
And he was responsible for 19 of Auburn's 33 points in that contest yesterday. And he was asked after the game about that. And as Alex always does, he said, listen, yeah, And people ask him, did you see that? Did you hear that? What did you think about it? He said, yeah, I saw it. He said, I'm not gonna lie. He said, I'm on social media some. I see what's going on. And he said, I saw what was said. And he said, people have their own opinions. He said, but you know what? He said, I serve God. And he said, I'm gonna give God the glory, whether I hit a field goal, whether I miss a field goal, whether we win, whether we lose. He said, God's going to get the glory. And he said, I'm going to do that every time I go out there, whether I hit the field goal or miss. He said, today I was blessed to be able to make all of the field goals. And he said, sometimes that doesn't happen. And, I was just, and how impressive is that for a young man to have that kind of attitude and to not get his, in this day and age, not get his feelings hurt, by somebody who was critical. And knowing the guy that criticized him like I do, he's probably not going to come out and publicly apologize for calling him terrible, even though he rebounded in a big way. And to me, it was a big exclamation point, and it was a big take that, buddy, but I want to give kudos to Alex McPherson and then Bo, I'll let you comment on this too, because we've asked several of our guests lately. But one thing that is really heartwarming to me, and Marty's talked about today's athletes a good bit, and he's done a lot of research on this, but there is a resurgence today of athletes who are finding Jesus and finding their salvation, and more and more and more, they are unashamed and unabashed at stating their faith publicly and online. I mean, the young man who came in for Auburn yesterday, the quarterback, Ashton Daniels, who's also from the Atlanta area, by the way, came in, and when they talked to him after the game yesterday, he said, this is just a blessing for me. He said it was an opportunity, and he said, I'm thankful to God, first of all, because God gave me the ability to do this. He gave me the ability to be here, and if I never played a play, I know I'm exactly where God wanted me to be. At this time in my life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. He said, I have no doubt about that. He said, I just give all glory to God that we were able to get a win today, and I was able to be a part of it. And you hear more, Matt, you hear more coaches now, more than ever, I think. Coaches are acknowledging their faith and not being ashamed to talk about their faith. But have you noticed that, Bo? And what do you attribute that to, I guess?
So I have noticed it, and it's interesting, and maybe it's have something to do with what the country has been through, and now there's kind of been a change, right? And so you have people that are more, I don't know if comfortable is the right word, or they're just more speaking about what they believe. And the interesting thing for me about it is, when they're interviewing one of these guys after the game or whatever, they're saying that, and then those guys are really humble typically, and they're talking about the team,
right?
So it's interesting. It's not about me; it's about everybody else. It's about the team, and so I think that's a unique characteristic that goes along with the fact that they're saying that, hey, they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God, and they would give God the glory. And then they go ahead and talk about not them. They talk about the team until they finally ask them a question that they have to kind of answer from a me standpoint. But yeah, it's really interesting that there's been a resurgence of that, and maybe more than ever, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Absolutely. Well, Bo, as Marty said, we're gonna wrap this up coming up, but I want to do the one thing that we always do, and usually it's to get a coach to give advice to a young person who is looking for a coaching job or is thinking about going into coaching. But we're going to turn that, because a lot of the things that in the business world run parallel. But what are some pieces of advice you would give a young person who is seeking that next opportunity, whether it be in the business world, whether it be in coaching, whatever it may be? what are some things that those young folks need to do and maybe to have in order in getting ready to step to another realm?
Yeah. So I think maybe some of the things that and some of the messages that we've had during the conversation here, maybe, kind of stick out for me. So first off, I think, differentiating yourself by working hard consistently.
Mhm.
I think that is an important thing. I think, we've talked about networking. That's a huge thing. How you can link together with network and then have all these opportunities that happen. And I think that also, just some of the basics of always trying to do the right thing, treat others with respect, no matter, if it's, a guy over here on the street or somebody and look up to, but it's the golden rule, right? Of treat others how you would like to be treated. And I think when you operate with those things in mind, that typically good things and opportunities can happen to you. So I would also say to not get discouraged. We live in this world of, of convenience, of, rapidly taking on content and all that kind of stuff. But things happen, sometimes they take time. Look at me, right? I was over 50 before I started this company, right? A young person may not get that type of time frame. They may not understand it. But my point is to be patient, but to continue with those characteristics I talked about, but be patient through that, and good things will happen to you.
Outstanding. Yeah.
I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being with us, Bo. It's been great. It's been a good lesson for a lot of people. It just reinforces this concept. You said it, the golden rule. And that's what I think we all need to live by. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
That's
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. And hey, I cannot end this podcast without asking you about the wall behind you. You've got a lot of album covers up there. I see Peter Frampton.
Yeah.
I think there's a little glare on it, but I think that's Bob Marley.
You got it
in one corner. And yeah. I vaguely recognize some of those album covers up there, but it's a pretty eclectic bunch of album covers, but that's a great collection. Who all do you have up there?
Thanks, Mike. Well, listen, first off, I love music, and I love all different types of music, but I grew up in that classic rock, Southern rock period. So that's really my kind of my heart right there. And I love music. And Marty, you probably didn't know this. I was a DJ on the college radio station at Georgia Southern, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
but
amazing.
But I have, a bunch of vinyl albums, and it's like I've been carrying these things around forever. And I'm like, I need to put some of those on the wall. They tell a story, right? So I picked out some of my favorites, and they've all got kind of a little bit of meaning to them. But yeah, it's kind of funny because I have that in my background. I've always thought, well, maybe that's not too professional or whatever. but more often than not, I get these comments like, that's Peter Frampton. That's Leonard Skinner. That's it.
Yeah.
People never get the Atlanta rhythm section, though, Marty. They don't find that one for some reason.
That's right.
Wow.
I say that when you return, that's our first topic right there next week. Okay. That's
okay.
A deal. Let's talk about that first.
And Bo, you and I have a lot in common because, I don't know what year you graduated high school, but I graduated in 82. And
I was 80.
So you're just a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
But we grew up in that same era. We came through the 70s and into the 80s. And I think,
right.
I've told my sons over and over and over again, the 80s was, to me, the greatest era of music. You mix in some 70s. There was plenty of great music in the 70s as well. But the 80s, I believe, was the greatest decade of music and it was so eclectic. There was so much out there, and it didn't matter what genre you were looking at.
Yeah, man.
Just fantastic music. And I remember, Frampton is more of a 70s guy, and but Kansas and Boston and Styx and all of those people, that 38 Special, Leonard Skinner. I mean, all that stuff is that's my wheelhouse as well. So that's why I was.
You can tell
impressed.
I'm 2 years older than you, though.
Yeah,
because I got a
little bit older music.
Allman Brothers, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. There's who else do I have up there? B-52s. Stevie Ray Vaughan. That's my ode to Texas right there. Right.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
Had to ask. Well, appreciate you bringing it up, Mike. I love it, man. So
guys,
music. I just like to say I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great pleasure, and really appreciate what y'all are doing.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it, buddy.
Bo, we appreciate you being with us, and once again, everybody watching today, it's been an honor to have Bo on here, but he's another example. Every guest we've had on this podcast is another example of how people have been willing to step up and make a difference. I think one of the messages you can take from today, from listening to Bo talk, is don't give up as you're going through it. It really doesn't matter how old you are. You can start something, and it could be the first day of something fantastic. And Bo didn't found his company until he was, over 50 years old. And a lot of people out there thinking, well, 50 is really old. You're not going to be working that much longer. And hey, it's never too late. It is never too late. I mean, we didn't start this podcast until I was over 60. So, Marty's a little bit more advanced than that. So, I mean, we're out here doing a podcast with all the young folks, and we're like the two old guys at the beginning of the Muppet Show. We're sitting up there going, ha, ha, laughing at everybody, making crazy jokes. But we're really enjoying this and the people we get to bring on here. But I think one of the lessons you can learn, it is never too late to take the first step on something, and you got to have faith. One of my favorite quotes is from Martin Luther King Jr. He says, you got to have enough faith to take the first step, even when you can't see the bottom of the staircase. And, that is, to me, that's a profound statement, because, you're stepping off into something. Sometimes you don't know what's going to happen after you take that first step, but you got to be willing to take that step, and you got to be willing to step up. And who knows how big of a difference you can make if you just take that first step and you do step up and try to make a difference. But folks, have a great week. We're headed into November. Don't get too spooked this week, since it ends in Halloween on Friday. I've seen more skeletons and stuff around neighborhoods in the last 2 or 3 weeks than I've seen in a long, long time. But guard yourselves. Be careful. Don't let the spooky people get you this week. And we will be back for the first episode of November next week, and we'll have a special guest. I'm not going to tell everybody who our guest is yet, Marty. We're going to spring that this week, because we got a good one coming next Sunday, and a big name that a lot of people will recognize right away. And we're just honored to be able to get to bring this every single week. But folks, again, when the opportunity comes, be willing to step up and make a difference. Marty, Bo, have a great week. Great having you, Bo. And you guys, love you guys, and we'll see you again soon here on Step Up and Make a Difference.
Thanks, guys.